Hey guys, welcome to Bastion Time. I'm your host Bastion. This is Nintendo News. This week's going to be a little different than last week, which as you know was a little different than the week before. Last week we had just one news video. This week there was a bit of news, so I'm not going to try to fit it all into just one video. I think I'll divide it up into 2 or 3 videos, so we'll see how that goes. Let me know what you think about that down in the comments. Let's get on to the first story, which is that there's a new edition of Link's Blacklist. And if you're not familiar with that it's an online art show where each year some very talented artists sort of re-depict various villains from the Zelda games, various enemies and final bosses and things. Very nice art always. This year's looks really great. You definitely want to check out these pieces of art. There's a link for you in the description. Our next story is about these teeny tiny little Pokemon sculptures. These things are, I don't even know how you carve something this small, but they're amazing. You definitely want to check these out. Of course, they're photographed in such a way that you can see all the details, but they are completely tiny. So definitely take a look at those if you want. There's a link for you in the description. Our next story is about Triforce Heroes and the fact that it turns out that Grezzo, or is it Grezzo? I never know how to pronounce their name, has had their hand in yet another Zelda game. In case you were not aware, they're the ones responsible for Ocarina of Time 3D. That was not an in-house Nintendo project. Basically, that was all put onto Grezzo's plate, and they did that just fine. They also did Majora's Mask 3D, and something else that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but then it turns out they're the ones responsible for Triforce Heroes, so it's pretty awesome that they are so involved with Zelda these days. They're basically like Zelda Team Part 2, but what's strange about Grezzo, if you didn't know this about them, is that they were originally people who worked at Square Enix. So Square Enix splintered off at one point to create a company called Brownie Brand, which was focused on things like the Mana series, the Secret of Mana series, and then the guy who was the creator and executive producer behind all the Mana games headed up a new company that was Brownie Brown People, but then called it Grezzo, and now for whatever reason Grezzo is specifically, almost exclusively working on Zelda games, which makes sense. I mean, the Mana games are kind of Zelda-like, but when are we going to get a brand new game from Grezzo is what I'd really like to see. But anyways, that's just some interesting random trivia for you. Our next story is very strange. I do not get it, but I explained a couple of weeks ago that Pokemon Company was suing a guy for, he was putting on a party at he owns a bar or something like that, and he was putting on a Pokemon party at his bar that was supposed to be related to PAX. Like, hey PAX people, come to the Pokemon themed party at my bar. And Pokemon Company said, no, you're infringing on copyright. So rather than sending a cease and desist, they just outright sued him, which seems strange. Usually in those kind of instances, like if Nintendo finds that there's a really popular Mario fan game out there, they'll just send a letter saying, hey, you gotta take that down. They won't sue the person, but for whatever reason, Pokemon Company decided to sue this guy, and they were awarded the settlement, so they were supposed to, the guy was supposed to pay them like $4,000 and some odd dollars, and that was the settlement. But then they feel like he's been going to the media outlets bad-mouthing them by talking about the lawsuit, and there's been a lot of negative reaction because in this day and age, people just don't understand a big company like that suing some guy for having a party about their game. So it technically is illegal, but and infringing on copyright, but in this day and age, we don't really look at it that way, whether it's legal or not. So, big issue right now where the settlement was $4,000 whatever dollars, and now Pokemon Company is saying, never mind. Since you're bad-mouthing us, we're going to go ahead and sue you anyway. So they're taking back the settlement and taking them to court regardless. So, yikes. Yeah, stay tuned for more updates about that particular story. I think Pokemon Company is making a huge mistake here myself. But In any case, let me know what you think about that in the comments. See you guys tomorrow for more news. Bye, guys.